Evening and welcome to the West Orange Board of Education Public Board Meeting on Monday, September 18th, 2023. I would like to thank all of you here in person and those watching from home for joining us tonight. I would like to welcome my fellow board members, as well as our student liaisons who will meet a little bit later, and Mr. Moore and Ms. Flowers. Ms. Flowers, would you please take the roll call?
Good evening, everyone. Roll call, please. Mr. Ifker?
Here.
Mr. Stevenson?
Here.
Ms. Tunnicliff?
Here.
Vice President Huerta?
Here.
President Rock?
Here.
Thank you. Notice of meeting. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests are discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, a written notice was sent from the Office of the Secretary of the Board on September 6th, 2023. That said notice was sent by regular mail to the West Orange Township Clerk and the editors of the West Orange Chronicle and by email to the Star Ledger. That said notice was posted in the lobby of the administration building of the Board of Education and posted on the district website. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcasted on local TV and the district's website at a future date. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Flowers. In consideration of the closed and public meeting of August 28th, 2023, do I have a motion to accept the minutes? So moved. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Tunnicliff. Any comments? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll.
Mr. Ifker?
Aye.
Mr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Ms. Tunnicliff?
Yes.
Vice President Huerta?
Yes.
President Rock?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and good evening to our student liaisons, Leila Abanaja and Kanai James. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Want to welcome you two to the board for this year and ask you to please share your student liaison report with us.
Oh, okay. So good afternoon to you all. I'm excited to be here. And I wanted to start off by talking about the pep rally, which occurred on Wednesday, September 13th. It was an exciting event for many students who attended and supported the sports teams by sharing their excitement. It provided the students a good introduction to the school year with a little team spirit and fun. At the rally, the brand new Mountaineer Sky Cam was introduced, and it took some amazing shots of the crowd doing the wave, and as well as multiple different sports teams' performances. A special shout out to Mr. Blummy for increasing school spirit and to the staff members for organizing such a great event.
Hello, everyone. I want to talk about Senior Fun Day. This event took place on Friday, September 15th. Okay. Good. Okay. So I want to talk about Senior Fun Day. It took place on Friday, September 15th. It was a memorable experience for all seniors, and it was definitely something to look forward to as well. They had different activities, including a mechanical bull, which was a very popular attraction, as well as a water gun competition, a basketball shooting competition, a Hungry Hippos competition, a Pop the Balloon competition, and lots of snacks and numerous other attractions. We wanted to extend a big thank you to anyone that helped out. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Moore, it is time for your report.
Yeah, sorry
was there
about
more?
that. Yeah, and so I wanted to just talk about the school football game on September 8th. West Orange High School had their first football game, blowing out the other team by 41 points to 0. I just want to give a special shout out to the students, the staff, and everyone who came together for such an amazing event. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the extreme amounts of heat in classrooms. So we had half days on September 6th and 7th because of the 90-degree weather. We feel as though it's a really good call because many classrooms overheated during this time and weren't quite equipped to keep up with that kind of heat. By having a half day, students were able to keep a calm and short day where they were able to be comfortable with classes and teachers. It allowed freshmen to gain familiarity with their classes and their high school. However, classrooms in the first floor in the Conforti building are extremely hot, and this heat causes students to be distracted from the content being taught in class, as their conditions make it hard to focus and seem unbearable. Furthermore, opening the windows did not make much of a difference.
And I also wanted to talk about the girls soccer game on September 11th. The girls soccer game came to an unexpected and due to unforeseen weather conditions. Both teams were moved safely along with the marching band in an orderly fashion. We feel as though it was a good call for teachers and students alike to keep the kids safe and not trying to force a game. I just wanted to give a special thank you to the teachers and staff for making that good call, and I'm happy everyone came out safe.
Okay, our last report is Green Ribbon Week, which starts this week. Today is the first day of Green Ribbon Week and the Grassroots Community Foundation's Youth Mental Health Campaign. Over the week, we'll be asking students to take time to take care of themselves and make sure that they breathe, move, connect. We are also asking adults to take time to listen. Grassroots uses green because it's the color of hope and positive things related to our well-being. They ask everyone to take the pledge to practice good mental health. The pledge can be found on Grassroots Community Foundation's website. And on Wednesday, we ask that you wear green to symbolize hope and wellness.
Thank you very much for that report. Mr. Moore, it is now time for your report. Would you please share your superintendent's report with us?
Thank you, President Rock. Excuse me, everyone. I still have allergies. I got allergies going on right now. First, before we get started, a little bit about my report and my first opening as superintendent. I'd like to take some time to congratulate Roosevelt Middle School on the hiring of their new assistant principal, Miss Olivia Batantis. Mr. Hush and Miss Batantis will be the new team that will be taking things over at Roosevelt. We're very proud of you, as Miss Batantis was a teacher that has now risen to assistant principal. Congratulations. So my report begins with a thank you to all our families for their patience and understanding, as this was my first opening of school. Felt very different. I feel like it was the first time I ever took my first child to school. I was nervous, but it was nice to see all the families. It was nice to see the teachers and the principals in a different light. There were some challenges, excuse my voice. There were some challenges that I noticed on the first day of school, and I'm hoping, not hoping, and I know that we will take steps so that we can improve on those. First, the early dismissal due to heat. I thank you for your patience, as those 2 days were very warm, and I felt the students would not be able to function at their best during that time. I thought staff would be very uncomfortable, so I appreciate your patience on the adjustment of the schedule. Busing, and tonight I will say our transportation director has joined us in case any of our families in the audience are still having trouble with busing. He's here to help answer some questions this evening if you need so. But transporting over 5,000 students by school bus takes laser focused planning. And this too was compounded with sudden change in schedules due to the heat. The busing schedules are reviewed and revised when real-time dilemmas arise. I thank everyone for their patience, and I also thank our transportation department for their persistence and fortitude in the efforts to get us back on track and keep us on track. Thank you, Mr. Cohen, and to your team. With relation to school grounds and as it relates to the property, I thought that we could perhaps work a little bit better at getting the grounds ready for our first day of school. So I've taken it upon myself to meet with our buildings and grounds director and our assistant director, our head custodians in each building, and talk about my expectations to what the grounds should look like every day. So I thank you. I thank them for their transparency and their support. And I thank you, families, for your support. And while we work things through in terms of the grounds. Enrollment. Yes, we have experienced a surge in enrollment this year. And and most specifically within our elementary levels. I thank our parents and students who have been placed outside of their neighborhood school, as well as our faculty and administration that found classroom space beyond the limitations. And of course, our registration department, I thank you for working tirelessly and finding placements for every one of our new students. I thank you guys with your patience. It's been a very challenging opening, but I hope that you have seen that we will be responsive as an administration. And now for my report, I would like to introduce Mr. Rodney Watkins of DeCara and Rubino Architects, who will present our long-range facility plan and update.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rodney Watkins. I'm the principal at DeCara Rubino Architects. We were tasked with the goal to review all your facility buildings, schools, and provide a comprehensive facility assessment report. With doing that, we had to have a team of architects, engineers, roofing manufacturers, and what we did was we went through every building in the district. First, we started with the site, which is everything outside, parking, sidewalks, stairs, steps, railings. Then we went to the exterior envelope, which encompasses the windows, any masonry cracks, roofs, everything that basically keeps the building enclosed. Then we went inside. We went to doors, floors, ceilings. We inspected everything. Then we finally I had brought in our engineers. They did the mechanical assessment, the electrical assessment, and also the plumbing. So with doing that, we developed a comprehensive report. And I think you guys have taken a look at it, where we've gone through every building, taken pictures. We've also identified items that we felt that needed to be not fixed or just repaired or replaced. And at the end of that assessment, we kind of put up a series of different findings. And with our findings, I can just basically go through. I don't want to bore everybody with every fine-tuned detail. But to summarize, there's a couple of schools where the roof is out of warranty. And as everybody knows, when the roof leaks, it can cause potentially serious issues with mold, et cetera, maybe causing the school to close. So that's one item that we identified when we, did our report. The second item is boilers. There's some boilers that are closing out on the end of their lifetime. So if a boiler goes during the heating season, it's important that needs to maintain functioning, because you can close the school. And then at that point, when it's time to fix a boiler, you're paying double, because you have to do an emergent project, and contractors don't care. They're just trying to rip you apart. So that's one of the items that we also identified in our report. And then there's the need for some electrical upgrade at various schools. Some schools are at their limit now. So if you wanted to add air conditioning, you would have to upgrade those buildings to be able to provide the power to provide air conditioning. So with that, we looked at a series of options with the director of facilities and some other administration staff. And I'll go over the three options. The first option we looked at was kind of like dealing with I'll say the projects that can kind of stop a school from functioning, which would be like the roofs, boilers, some potentially electric upgrades. So we did a series of different studies where over a 5-year period, given a specific dollar amount to, go out for projects in that particular year, we were able to come up with a plan where we can get all the roofs completed and some of the boilers that are at the end of their lifetime done within 5 years. But then, we looked at another option where, there's the need for heat or air conditioning, sorry, which is pretty much every district in the state. So we looked at two options on the way to accomplish that. First was to go through and yearly upgrade electrical upgrades at each school based on the budget amount that we have set for a particular given year. So with doing that, we are able to accomplish that over a period of 8 years to do electric upgrades at all the schools and then move into HVAC cooling. This is just one option. I'm not saying this is final. This is my stab with the staff at tackling a particular problem. Did you want to? That's option two.
Option one remains at 5 years.
Option one is just tackling the roofs and boilers.
Option two is option one plus the addition of electrical upgrades.
Totally different option. Option two is just dealing with electric upgrades first, then going to HVAC after. We put the priority to provide cooling in that option. Option three is similar to option two, whereas we would tackle a school at a time. We would particularly pick, I'll just say Redwood. We would do an electric upgrade year one. It's going to take 2 years nowadays to do an electric upgrade because of the supply chain, PSE&G. Typically, they take 2 years. So if you did want to do air conditioning at a school, it's going to take you 2 years to get the electric upgrade in place. And then the following year, you could put in the HVAC that following summer.
I'm sorry, I want to preempt your report. Is that under the presumption that the entire facility is inadequate with respect to electrical capacity to carry a load for air conditioning?
Yes. Multiple schools. They're at their limit. When you want to provide air conditioning, it takes an extreme load that the school wasn't originally designed to do.
And have you, and again, not to preempt your report, so this is my last question, I'll let you finish.
No, please.
You've outlined 3 separate options with 3 separate costs, and presumably 3 separate timelines. Have you enumerated costs with respect to each of the options?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's also, the costs are in the report. Now, I just want to go through option 2 and 3 again. It's going to take a substantial amount of time to do air conditioning in every building based on a fixed dollar amount of capital projects you're going to do per year. So if we kept it at the dollar amount that it's set, it would take you approximately 16 years.
I'm trying to just.
All right. It'd be $80 million. Today's time, today's cost.
80 million, 16 years to upgrade every school in every way.
HVAC only. So we're talking about HVAC,
Right.
electric upgrade. I'm not even accounting for asbestos because we didn't do that. So that would be an additional cost. So when I say $80 million, that's the $80 million construction cost. And you also have to add in soft costs of around 30%, which the state mandates that you do. So you got 80 million on top of 30%, you're about 113,000, about 113 million
In today's dollar.
in today's dollars. Now, if you go over a period of years. So if you just say inflation, 3.8% average. By the time year 16, that dollar amount now is 113 million. So now we're talking about 26 years. Based on if you kept that same dollar amount for capital projects every year.
And that's based on a number that I assume the district has provided with respect to what it believes its capital improvement budget allocation annually would be.
Yes, that's the number I was given, and that's how I did my 5-year plan.
Gotcha.
Or actually the options to be able to provide air conditioning to all the schools.
So in today's dollars, you have a projected cost of $80 million
That's
That-
today.
is then divisible by 16, which would give us the amount that the district presumably gave you as to the per annum allocation for these level of upgrades.
Correct.
Notwithstanding whatever other upgrades the district may need to make in terms of emergency improvements, or any other.
Right. So with that option 2 and 3, we're not taking into account of roofs or boilers or anything like that.
That 80 million is option 3.
2 and 3 is the same. It's full air conditioning and it's going to be $80 million.
Gotcha.
Again, I'm going to say, because prices are just nuts now. I'm in construction. So I say $80 million today, because while I was doing this report, which we started in like March, I had to change the costs in the middle because we were taking bids and they were like double. So I had to update the costs in this facility report to match 2023 costs. So I put some additional monies in to try to cover us for 24. But again,
Option 1 does not include air conditioning.
No.
Marty. Option 1 includes what you have deemed to be those
emergent
items,
projects.
emergent projects, which could cause some disruption to school operations. Is
Correct.
that correct?
That's correct.
Like the roof,
Yes,
heating,
yes.
that is not $80 million,
No.
right? What was that aggregate number?
Okay, to do all the rules. Just bear with me 1 second. I got all my notes here. Do all the rules, I had 17 million.
And that project, presumably, given the span of time and the allocation of number given to you by the district, option 1 would be completed in what span of time?
In 5 years.
5 years.
And those rules are to have a 25-year warranty.
Option 2 and 3, I'm just asking for clarification,
Sure.
does not include option 1. It is the requisite electrical capacity upgrade, and then the addition of HVAC. Is that window units? Is that?
No,
That's to retrofit buildings and put
put
VRF type systems or
or a horizontal unit ventilator, which is a package unit that sits in the classroom that brings in fresh air and exhausts used air. And there's a condenser somewhere, either remotely on the roof or on the ground somewhere. That is the proper way to do it, but other school districts, they put it in a window unit, but that's not allowed. I can't do it. The school could do it, but I can't do it. It doesn't meet the fresh air requirements by code.
we're not subject to the fresh air requirements by code in existing buildings that already have window air conditioning units or have the capacity to use window air conditioning units. We do have some buildings that have existing window air conditioning units, correct?
Yeah, right, but I'm saying a school could put it in, the town is not gonna close you.
No, I understand that.
But as a licensed professional, I have to do it by the code.
So to that point, if you simply did electrical upgrades
Mhm.
for the capacity to carry a load sufficient to allow the school district to do as it's done in several buildings throughout the town where window air conditioning units have been put in, notwithstanding the the code, the fresh air code is subject to some construction issue related to the school. If the district were, if this board were to contemplate that alternative of doing window units because there needed to be electrical upgrades, I assume that your firm has not done cost estimates with respect to just the electrical upgrades to have the capacity for the district to install window air conditioning units. You have?
Yeah, it's not gonna be that much different than what you're doing now. Suppose, I'll just say, for instance, I'll just use round numbers. If we're doing an electric upgrade to a particular school and I need to bring it up to, I'll say, a 8 kW switchgear. You have a 4. So there's no in between, you gotta go to the 8. So it's the same cost to electric upgrade for small window units versus a regular system. So I'm saying is you're really not gonna save any money by putting in window units with the electrical upgrade portion. You'll save money on the HVAC portion.
Right, but I'm saying if you were to pull out the HVAC portion of this projected $80 million, or after 16 years, the projected $113 million, what is in today's dollars, what would be the electrical upgrade sufficient to allow the district, if it so chose to do so? What would be that number on electrical upgrades solely?
Well, electric upgrades I had at. $8 million.
8 million?
8.5 million.
8.5. So 8.5 million, every school in the district, right? 14 buildings.
That
including
needs an electric upgrade,
So 8.5 million in today's dollars.
today's dollars.
No, is that 8.5 million per school or per?
No,
The
all-
aggregate.
The aggregate of all the ones that need to have electric upgrades.
And so, and I'm only asking the question, Mr. Watkins, because in this community, air conditioning may seem to be an emergent issue, right? We're closing schools, half days.
It's not just here, it's
It's everywhere, all right? But I don't live everywhere. I live here.
Right.
Right. So I'm just asking the question. So 8.5 million versus 80 million to do I'm sorry,
80 million, the 8.5 million is in the 80 million.
is in the 80. But of that 80, only 8.5 is to upgrade the electrical sufficient to increase the capacity of the load to put window air conditionings in the school buildings if the district so chose to do that.
Mhm.
And of that 80, 71.5 million presumably is the new HVAC, VRF, or some level of systems in all the buildings to do that.
Mhm.
Right? But those are two different numbers, right? I mean, that's a material difference between one and the other. And I think obviously the $80 million like in the ideal world.
Well, it's a mechanical unit that's gonna last about 20 years. A window unit is gonna last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, Mr. Can I ask a question?
Just follow up on
Oh,
that one second.
please.
We'll go to you, because so I'm looking at the very end of the PDF that you sent. There's
Mm.
this chart, a
Mhm.
whole bunch of numbers.
Yep.
So listening to you, listening to his questions, I think it makes sense. I just want to confirm and
Sure.
verify. So there's a line item on here that says electric service and
Yep.
distribution. So essentially that's what it would cost to do the upgrades for the
Yep.
electrical work, right?
Correct.
And there's another line item for general HVAC. So that essentially represents real air conditioning units if we
Yes.
were going that route.
Yeah.
And the boiler room line item on that's the emergent boilers that may go down if we don't fix them.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's a number for all the schools, but you don't need to do, they're not all
Okay.
at that.
I'm guessing the ones that are over $1 million are the ones that you said were really,
Yes.
okay. I think I follow.
President Rock's better than me. I don't have my computer, Mr. Watkins.
Oh, that's all right.
My apologies.
I'm
Well,
here.
I'm
and I'll
asking
answer all your
I can answer these questions when he's not here.
Oh, gotcha.
questions.
Thank you, thank you.
So we don't have to call him every day when you have another question. Go ahead, Robert, sorry.
So I wanted to approach this from a different angle. Mr. Rock was sort of alluding to it now. Rather than talk about, roofs cost X amount of dollars, electrical upgrade costs X amount of dollars, heating and air conditioning costs X amount of dollars. I'd like to take it school by school. Which school is in the greatest need of a new roof?
I wouldn't,
Okay.
I wouldn't say it like that. I would say the ones that are out of warranty. And
Okay.
those are the ones that I identified.
Okay, let me try it a different way. I understand what you're saying.
I can't say which one's worse. I can't.
Okay, but we can say, maybe we can say which building is in the greatest urgent need for improved air conditioning. Yes? The ones that were closed. Right?
Wait, first you said roofs, now we're
There-
talking. air
No, now
conditioning.
I'm talking, there has to be some gradation about which air conditioning in the school, in which schools have the oldest air conditioning system, which ones are sort of clunking along, which ones are dead, something like that.
Well, there's some schools that don't have air conditioning in classrooms at all.
Okay. So I'm just trying to prioritize because there's no way we're going to be able to do everything we want to all at once.
Well, yeah, I mean, to prioritize like that, I would need to go over that with the administration. I
Okay.
can't.
Thank you.
Well, and just for Mr. Ipperker's benefit, at the end of the document, the chart breaks it down by project
Yeah.
and by building.
By
So you can
building.
see which roofs have the largest dollar figure, which presumably are the ones that are out of service and need completely replaced, versus the ones that have a smaller dollar figure that just need some work around the edge. So, I mean, this is something that,
Maybe.
this is a much longer conversation that we can have
Yes.
tonight about which projects need to be prioritized, but as we get into budget season, I'm sure we'll have a lot of conversations
Right.
about how to prioritize them and how to move forward.
That's why when I started, I just said, I just took a stab at options that I thought that could help you get your bang for the buck for 5 years.
Mr. Watkins, I'm out of time, but that's what they're telling me in my ear. I'm out of time. But let me ask you one other question. So you have of a 5-year span on option one, a 16-year span on options. two.
No, I have the 5 year, but I'm telling you that in that 5 years, you're just gonna have electric upgrade done at that part. You're not gonna have all the HVAC done within 5 years.
Gotcha. So I'm just clarifying again.
Mhm.
If you were to do electrical upgrades solely for the capacity to run window air conditionings, if the district so chose to put those in,
Mhm.
you're saying the timeline is still 5 years to do an electrical upgrade for all of the campuses
That need to have electric.
that
upgrade.
need to have electrical upgrades. I
Yes,
think
you can do that within 5 years.
You can do that within 5 years.
Yes.
And I think to Mr. Ivkers, and I don't want to presume your question, so please correct me, Dr. If I'm incorrect. I think what I was hearing in Mr. Ivkers' question is, are there, and you can't, likely can't answer this, and the numbers in Mr. Rock's chart may not bear this out. There may be some schools that are at 60% capacity, right? I know a school that has been upgraded 3 times. So part of the school's got central air, part of the school got some window air conditioners, part of the school's got nothing because they don't have the electrical capacity. There may be a school that doesn't have any capacity whatsoever. So are you asking a low hanging fruit question? Like, is there a school that can get this upgrade quicker relative to another school?
I'm asking who needs what now,
Got it.
from a safety standpoint. I mean, roofs, they have the warranties and all, but a roofer can go up there and say, your warranty has expired, but you look good for the next 3 years. Or he or she's gonna go up there and say, don't worry about the warranty. This thing needs to be addressed now. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, all of that's in the report about how much time you have left, because again, there's a couple of roofs that don't have any warranty. So what the district has been doing, if there's a leak, they send someone to repair it. But like I was saying, when I went through this comprehensive report, I just identified it.
And one last question for me, the 80 million was option 2 and 3.
Yep.
17 million for option 1. That was critical upgrades and HVAC. What for the community's purpose, they don't have this report,
Mhm.
but obviously in our transparency. In your entire assessment for everything the schools need, what was the bottom line number that if we had some some ever-flowing pot of money, what did your assessment of all the facilities come to in terms of what their need, what the need was for all facilities, all projects, emergent and otherwise?
Well, we identify, if a bathroom needs to be renovated because it's not ADA compliant. So I've done stuff like that. So a lot of that doesn't need to be done, but I have a complete number if you want, like your wish list to do everything.
Well, yeah, you compiled the report, so what is
So-
that wish list?
So just architecturally, that was,
Uh-oh, need your
Yeah.
glasses for this.
that's too small. That it was 255 million for just the architectural elements. And then if you add on another 113,000 for, all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing items. But again, that's a comprehensive number. You don't have, we have numbers in here for classroom renovation, if you wanted to fix the floor up, but you don't have to do it. So it's skewed. It's
Gotcha.
not telling you exactly what you need to do. I could do that, but I didn't do it in this report for tonight's presentation.
Sorry.
But I could do that.
Looking at the chart, and I thought it said 255 was the total of that 140 was architectural and 113 was mechanical.
No, that's,
Right, because there's a subtotal for architectural. at
oh,
the
I'm
bottom.
sorry. Yes, you're
Yeah.
right. 255 for everything.
That number's big enough. Let's not make it bigger.
Yep, 255 for everything.
Hope you got a big pot of money. Does anybody else on the board have questions? Anything else from? Is there anything else? We kind of preempted you with questions, but was there anything else you wanted to? share?
No, I just want to, so I could, well, I need some direction on how to finish this up. And so I guess if there's more conversations or meetings that I need to have with the board to go over that, I meet with staff, we'll come up with some plan and present it to you again.
Okay.
Because, I kind of was, like I said, I was just taking a stab at what I thought. I know air conditioning was the big thing, so I threw two options in there for that.
Yeah, and I think we have to have some more discussions about what that dollar figure is, what's reasonable, and then seeing someone. This is a good start to see the actual projects, and then we can get to work on the prioritizing piece. I think this, just to kind of put a pin on it, the last budget season, we talked about facilities issues, and we had some people come forward from the public that said, well, do we really need to fix this today? Why don't we push off this $1 million project to next year? And, we said there's a whole lot of projects that need to be done. So looking at this, I think it's fair to say that if we pushed off one project, there's 10 more that would fill it in.
Right.
So, right, we have to come to an agreement on how much to spend, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's any way we could spend enough money to fix all this in any reasonable time frame. And so this is a project that we're going to have to tackle bit by bit and make some work on it. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I'm here and I'm your partner with it, so I'm here to help.
Look forward to seeing from you again.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
All right, well, thank you very much for that report. And thank you to my colleagues for all of their questions. Do we have any committee reports? Ms. Werth, I know you had something from Essex County School Boards Association. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rock. That was my fault. We do have an ELA report, and I would like to invite our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum to the mic.
Good evening. On November 13th, the administration will present to the board and to our community the 22-23 New Jersey State Assessment results. Included in that report in November will be a focus on ELA and a focus, on math, where we're going to really talk about where our programs are, where we're headed, and specifically as it relates to the instructional programs, the strategies and interventions that are in place to move student achievement forward. So that's going to take place in November. However, since that presentation isn't until November, I wanted to provide a brief update on ELA this evening, especially in light of the recent announcement by Teachers College to dissolve the Lucy Calkins units of study. The West Orange Public Schools currently implements a balanced literacy approach to teaching literacy that addresses the New Jersey student learning standards alongside the National Reading Panel's 5 essential components of reading, which are phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. So just an overall, what is balanced literacy? When we say in West Orange, we implement balanced literacy, it's a framework that really seeks to assure that we're addressing all of the pillars of instruction. We want to implement an evidence-based English language literacy program that's grounded in scientific research literature for effective strategies in reading and writing. What is it not? Balanced literacy is not synonymous with a single program or a single implementation. Balanced literacy is not Lucy Calkins, and it's not the units of study. That's important for us to know when we're asked if we are, right, is balanced literacy the same as? It's not the same as. We do have units of study in our curriculum as a resource. It is not the curriculum. We will phase out then the units of study this year. We will do so, and then we will replace those resources with resources that are a product of our ELA committee's findings, and we will fund those through ESSER 3. They will not come out of the LEA budget proper. Since the beginning of last year, our office and the ELA department has been diligently following the research for both balanced literacy, the science of reading, and the debates that have become known now as the reading wars. In response, last February, we formed a committee that consists of approximately 25 teachers, different administrators, to include a wide representation of general education, special education, ESL teachers across the K-5 grade span, as well as reading specialists and interventionists. The committee last year began meeting monthly and is continuing their work throughout this year. The purpose last year was to evaluate the curriculum specifically, look at the framework through the most recent research, and ensure we're effectively addressing the 5 pillars of reading and make recommendations. So that was their phase 1 last year's purpose of that committee. Last year, they made the following recommendations. They centered around phonemic awareness, explicit, systematic, and multisensory instruction, coaching to guide instructional alignment to research-based strategies for instruction, inserting grammar into the curriculum, and formative assessment. So therefore, when they looked at our curriculum in grades K2, while we were meeting expectations with phonics, they saw that explicit instruction for phonemic awareness needed stronger representation in the curriculum. They voted 100% of the committee to include Heggerty phonemic awareness then into our daily K1 instruction. The board adopted that at the end of last year. And this year, this month, we began with the Heggerty curriculum in all K-2 classrooms, which is a specific push for phonemic awareness where we saw the need. Additionally, we purchased decodables text sets for all of our book rooms to directly support the instruction with more intentionality. We also received training on morphology. Morphology is the fluency, the vocabulary, the comprehension, and how to apply it in the classroom. This is explicit, systematic, and multisensory instruction. All reading specialists and academic support teachers were trained in Orton Gillingham's Morphology Comprehensive 30-hour course in order to provide Tier 2, Tier 3 students with additional intervention services. So that was another thing that was implemented based on those first recommendations. Additionally, we partnered with Rutgers. You see on this agenda, and you saw at the end of that we also implemented this last year. It's coaching for implementation of intentional targeted learning, small group differentiated instruction. So what that means is what we're writing in our curriculum, are we really implementing it in the classrooms? And those coaches are running alongside the teachers to say, this is how we should be implementing our curriculum as it relates to intervention, differentiation, and small group instruction. This year, we're also implementing a K through 12 literacy academy that is being held monthly after school to offer professional learning focused on literacy strategies facilitated by teachers and reading specialists to all of our elementary staff. So that literacy academy is starting now in October, again, monthly, to focus on literacy strategies. We also implemented the iReady formative assessment starting this year. We were trained last year for iReady and ELA for the formative assessment. We're starting now in the fall. We will administer these specific formative assessments to inform our instruction, our small group intervention, and stronger alignment to our standards. So those were year one findings for the committee and what we've already started to implement. This year, the committee will concentrate its focus on previewing research-based literacy programs in an effort to guide teachers through the implementation of a balanced literacy program that offers greater levels of structure, support, instructional materials, and alignment to the most recent evidence-based research and science in the area of reading. So that committee will now start to explore the different programs, the different resources that are available, so that we can consider what will be implemented in 23 and 24. It's important to note that as this committee begins to explore these different materials, it is a committee of 25 plus administrators. However, we're putting together a very robust implementation plan, as we did with the iReady Math, so that all teachers can have an input into the materials that are selected, the program that's selected. We will push into the schools. We will open feedback loops. We will each point along the way, make sure that all teachers across the district are previewing the materials. We will push into the classrooms for what we call piloting, right? But where the teachers are actually exploring those materials and see if it's meeting their needs. And it will be alongside what the research and the science is saying. We have published this synopsis of how we're defining balanced literacy in West Orange on our website, on the ELA webpage. As we develop our research and implementation plan, we will publish that as well. So everybody is in the know, up to date as we move through our cycle of exploring the research materials, programs, text, etc. And we will communicate that not only with our staff, but with our families, with the board, and with the public on a timeline. We can expect to see that action plan in November when we will speak about it at our presentation. So in closing, in November, the board can expect to receive a more comprehensive report on the status of ELA from our supervisor of ELA, who can speak to more technical pieces of the content as it relates to our student achievement data. We will get an update on the committee's progress in November, because they will have met 3 times again before we come together in November. And they will also continue to inform us about specific instructional strategies that are being implemented to address the individual needs of our students.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Any questions? Brief.
Brief. Can you talk a little bit about this K through 12 Literacy Academy? Can you just give me a little more detail on that, please?
Sure. So the Literacy Academy will be for our teachers. It will be facilitated by teachers, reading specialists, and supported by our consultant work. The courses will be open to all of our staff, and then the staff can choose to come in after school. It will be offered once a month to participate in that learning. And the focus will be very deliberate and intentional around ELA instructional strategies.
Sorry, this is voluntary?
Absolutely voluntary, yes. However, we're seeing already, as the staff is aware, that we're looking at our ELA program and committee work around choosing to really consider our direction and where we may need to shift or pivot. So I think we're going to have a very good showing of our staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mendez. So let me just say, I commend the superintendent for recognizing the urgency of academic achievement in this district. I think any reasonable and fair assessment would suggest that our academic numbers are not where they need to be. And so I appreciate the superintendent and the span of work that you and the supervisors have done to kind of really do this assessment of where we need to be from an ELA standpoint, particularly as it relates to K-5 ELA. But let me just ask a couple of clarifying questions. The committee has been meeting since last February, you indicated,
Yes,
and in those findings, the committee has suggested that there were subsections of ELA that they thought needed to be strengthened within our
phonemic awareness specifically and grammar.
and grammar.
Mhm.
So does that mean that those were not inherently embedded in the existing curriculum, or were there the materials insufficient for a proper delivery of those things at the classroom level?
I think strengthening is a good word. So we saw evidence of phonemic awareness, but when we're thinking about our student assessment scores, when we're thinking about where the students are performing, then we want to offer greater areas of support. So when we're looking at the different pillars of the 5, phonemic awareness was the area in which we needed greater levels of support. So we adopted Hegarty to offer those greater areas of support. And curriculum development, instructional strategies, all of those areas are continuous and a cycle, right? So we're always looking to see what are the areas in which the data would say, here is where a greater level of focus needs to take place. And so then that's what that committee is doing. That was their finding. And therefore, we are providing strengthened supports for phonemic awareness in particular.
And our K-5 elementary school children, I don't know specifically which grades, are taking, as you indicated, the iReady diagnostic for ELA. However, we don't use iReady ELA as a curriculum.
Correct. And it's not necessary. They can be used independently, absolutely. So what they're assessing is the standards. iReady is the vehicle. So iReady will say to us, these students are taking this assessment based on the standards. Here are the areas where they have need. Here are very specific instructional strategies to move them from point A to B. Here is how you can monitor that frequently. We're offering you a system in order to monitor their growth. And we're providing for the teachers how they can be grouped, what differentiation strategies can take place, and maybe what gaps there are in learning, if there are gaps in learning. This also extends to the high-performing student, to that middle child, right? It's not just the gaps. I just want to be clear about that.
And so that the community knows, this diagnostic is being used for the first time in our district this year. So there was a prior diagnostic that was assessing these standards with respect to ELA, correct?
We were using MAP, and MAP did not, MAP had its function and its purpose. It provided us with where our needs were, but it didn't provide us with specific strategies. It didn't give the teachers a protocol, a very laid out go-to, if then, right? If this is what you see, then do this. And I think that's what we need to get into our teachers' hands. We need to provide them with very specific strategies that are already created for them based off of the research, based off of the diagnostic, based off of the formative assessments, versus them having to go search for the strategies and then create their lessons. Here we are. This is what the science is saying about the students' performance, their data, and what interventions are proven to work these in the class, and we can monitor those to see how we're gaining.
How long did we use MAP as an assessment? And how long has the current curriculum been in place with respect to ELA?
MAP, I believe, has been in place. I don't want to be quoted. I think MAP has been in place.
I'm
I'll
sorry,
look it up.
you don't have to
Maybe
get, I'm just trying to, because this is a pivot, so I'm just, and obviously it's a pivot that is either coming out of some urgency from central office or some assessment by the committee that.
Right. I
This-
think pivots happen for multiple reasons. One of the reasons the pivot happens is, again, every year, especially on a 5-year cycle, we're reevaluating our program. So at the end of every year, we have to see what's working and what's not. at the end of every 5 years, we're doing a very concerted effort district-wide with curriculum, with our texts, with our assessments, because that's our cycle. And so then in our cycle, we have to monitor which programs are yielding the outcomes that we're looking for and which programs are not yielding. And so then based off of teacher feedback, we needed a more specific formative assessment measure, a system to say, this is specifically what the students are doing, and this is what they are not doing. And can we get something in our hands? So here, a product of feedback, a product of our evaluating our programs, a product of our 5-year cycle, a product of not having the data that we need in a way that is useful for the teachers to easily implement. So I think it's a combination of.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Just one quick follow-up on Mr. Stevenson's question. So you said iReady is aligned to the standards, and by
Yes.
that, just want to spell it out for everyone. So that, I assume that means the state standards, the same ones to which the NJSLA is
Correct.
aligned. So iReady should identify any gaps that exist before students take the state assessment.
Correct.
Do either of you have questions?
And just to tag on, Mr. Rock, iReady not only identifies that for the teachers, but it identifies that for the administrators and for the families. So now we can offer our families some very guided support around how do I help my child at home? What should I look for in the classroom? So I think it really will consider just the whole of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Mendez. Thank you, Ms. Mendez. I think we're done with you.
Yep.
Sorry, that went a little bit longer. No, you're good. We're just gonna take like a 2-minute break and then we'll be back for committee reports. So talk amongst yourselves. right, thank you all for your patience. We will be getting back on agenda now. Mr. Moore, does that conclude your report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rock. May proceed.
All right, thank you very much. Sorry, committee reports we were getting up to, Ms. Huerta.
So I was able to participate in a meeting with the New Jersey School Board Association last week, but we will be meeting again this Wednesday. The Delegate Assembly is the official policymaking body of the New Jersey School Board Association. We'll be voting on a resolution titled Book Bans and Guidelines for Evaluation and Selection of Instructional Materials in New Jersey Public Schools. I am wearing green for the Green Ribbon Week as well, so thank you for our liaisons for mentioning that. I did want to also mention West Orange Stop Suicide Advocacy Coalition will be having a 5K on October the 1st. Tomorrow evening, United Asian Voices will be hosting a meet and greet at Mama Dag's at 7 p.m. Yeah, that's all the reports I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything, Ms. Tunnicliffe?
Not at this time, thanks.
All right, then thank you for that, Ms. Huerta. I'll move on to my board president's report. I will start with highlighting our little ones at the Betty Madalena Early Learning Center. These students and staff had a wonderful start to the school year. Students have explored their classrooms, learned the daily schedule and routines of the class, and made new friends. Our students have also learned to be kind to their friends and made good choices in school and outside of school. Our school also plans to support Green Ribbon Week beginning on Monday, September 18th, as an additional means to reinforce positive self-worth and being kind to others. Our teachers will spotlight respecting feelings and emotions, as well as being a good friend to others. Also, just want to highlight on Sunday, the Nikhil Badlani Foundation is having their 13th annual Stop for Nikhil 5K. So before you go to the one that Ms. Huerta mentioned, you can stop by the high school here and register for that. I'll be there Sunday running as well. Are you going to? Yeah, so you'll see some of us there. The school community has always been hugely supportive of that event, so I look forward to seeing some of you out there. And last thing I'll mention is that on the agenda tonight, there is a sizable donation from Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas. It's going to include two large things, a scoreboard and installation at the football field, and also a futsal surface at Hazel Elementary. We just got news that this stuff was happening, I think late today. Well, I mean, we've been working on it, but it's
Yes,
official
and
now.
it's official. We will get a donation, and we're very happy and proud that Robert W. Barnabas chose to donate to us. So we're looking forward to that. And as soon as maybe Friday, we may see the scoreboard. I don't want to make a promise because I'm not sure, but I think as soon as maybe Friday.
So So thank you to Robert Wood for that. I think that was an invitation to come to the football game Friday. Perhaps we'll see a new fancy scoreboard. I think it's also senior night at the football game. Is that right? Yeah. So lots of reasons to come out Friday night and watch us play Mount Olive.
Yes.
Maybe. All right. Well, maybe I'll see some of you there and then Sunday again at the race. That concludes my president's report. Next item on the agenda is the first reading of a policy number 2421, the career and technical education. The policy has been reviewed and revised by administration and presented this evening for first reading. Is there any discussion from my colleagues?
No discussion, President Rock. I would urge the board colleagues to pass the first reading in this policy incorporation into the policy for the district.
Since it's first reading, we don't actually have a motion and vote on it. It'll appear on second reading. That's when we'll vote for it. Any? All right. So hearing none, the policy will appear on the next agenda for second reading and for adoption. All right, next, we will have questions from the public on agenda items only. Any community member who would like to make comments or ask questions, please come to the podium at this time. Please state your name and home address for the record and then begin your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public here in the audience tonight who wish to make a public comment?
My name is Jonathan Redwine. I live at 10 Cobain Terrace. And I just wanted to make a couple of observations about the architectural report that we just heard. Specifically, they're kind of suggestions in the form of a question, so you don't really have to answer them, but I hope that you'll consider making the requests of the architectural firm as they revise their drafts. Has the firm or the board done any analysis on potential capital funding sources? I'm sure would hope that the board would have sort of a parallel process to look for funding for those kinds of things. Does the plan that the firm put together account for the student population surge that we're seeing in the district? Are we going to need a new school? Or do we need to expand footprint of current schools? And then sort of an issue that I'm pretty focused on, is there consideration of how capital improvements might incorporate elimination of carbon from power sources that we use in our schools? And also a question for you all that I asked to the town council in January. Does our school district have a climate action plan? And has there been any thought to beginning to put that together as we see impacts of climate change happening? So those are my comments.
Hi, good evening. My name is Meljulie Valdez. I have a question regarding like public comment. Is it open? Because in the agenda, it says public session at 6:30. So how exactly does that work? Can I just read my comments, or just has to be about the agenda items?
So we have two public comments sessions during the meeting. This one is supposed to be about agenda items. We usually interpret that kind of loosely. So if it's related to the superintendent's report or something, that will be appropriate. But there's a general comment session after we go through the resolutions, which is open for any comment that's not related to an agenda item or something that we've already spoken about tonight. So I'll
I mean,
respectfully leave it to you to decide whether
yeah,
you want to
I'm
speak
just,
now or later.
I'm just gonna make my comments because I've been here since 6:30 and it's now 7:43 and my little one is here. So good evening, West Orange Board of Education members, staff and community. I have a few things that I want to discuss. Specifically Zoom access. I have been waiting to speak since 6:30 and I would like to know why these meetings don't allow a Zoom option to provide a public comment similar to West Orange Town Council meetings so that more families can participate from home, since many cannot come out to the high school during a school night, the school evening on a Monday. It was basically a sacrifice that I'm making being here tonight. Air conditioning. My daughter attends Washington School. Given the temperatures, it was very warm at the school that even aftercare had to be canceled because the gym and cafeteria where aftercare take place were unbearable. I would like to know what will be done to improve these conditions at Washington and other schools who also have the same issues. And what are the next steps regarding the report that was presented today regarding the facility upgrades? If you can explain more, what's going to happen next and what is the timeline? And also what if our budget in the capital expenditures allows for any of this to take place within the next few years, or is it going to have to go to referendum, or how is this going to be funded? Because those numbers were alarming to me. Lastly, my other question is regarding the preschool program, because I was alerted that at Washington now there's 2 additional classes in the basement when we already have 2 trailers at Washington School, and one was just built within the last year, I believe. Also just the way that the preschool program has been implemented. I have spoken to other parents that were upset as to how they were notified regarding the program at the very last minute, that there was a site change, and also that at first they were told that their child was going to be at Washington School and now their child is at Community House, and that the fact that that was done very last minute was very upsetting. And just, I would like to just more information regarding what's going to happen at Washington School regarding the preschool program, because already the K-5 students, it's kind of overwhelming, and Washington School is not a huge school. So, what's going to be done to accommodate both populations? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Nicole Rufo for Overlook Avenue. I just wanted to first start with our student report when she mentioned about the heat in the high school. I have 4 kids in 3 different schools, and I will say the high school is the biggest problem on the first week of school. As a former teacher, I totally agree on the half-day situation for the teachers and the students would happen, but with climate change and numbers rising, we cannot keep doing that all of September and all of June in the future. And I worry when we talk about a 5-year plan or a 16-year plan, that's not feasible. So whatever we need to do to figure out and have this conversation, I know that that's going to be the priority. And then also with the ELA report, I really appreciated Ms. Ms. Demenda's report. I have students who've had, or my own children who've had issues with learning to read in our district, and other children who just got it really fast. So for the kids who get it fast, I think it's been okay, but for the kids who need that systematic instruction and phonemic awareness that she was speaking of, especially the Orton Gillingham and Wilson. I had a master's in education. I was teaching in New York City, and I couldn't teach these kids to read because I did not have the certain skills I needed as a teacher. So you need to give the teachers the skills, the Orton Gillingham, the systematic instruction that is very different than what you just learn in a master's program. So those are beyond, and what she's talking about, this K-12 academy, I think would be phenomenal. They need support. They need people coming into the classroom. They need people making sure that, and not in a, stressful way, but in a helpful coaching mentality that allows them to give to these students what they need, especially K-2. If a kid is struggling to read in our district right now, it's a big problem. And they don't need to always be evaluated. They don't always need an IEP. Sometimes they just need systematic instruction, pull out of their classroom for a half an hour a day, 4 days a week. So I implore you to please use money to train everybody for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment this evening?
Greetings to the dais, to all those who are sacrificing their free time to be out here, parents and community as well. My name is Angelo Stewart. I am a current resident at 5 Fairmont Terrace. I've been living in West Orange for 24 years. I am an educator, retired for 32 years, and 2 school districts before substituting in West Orange for almost 6 years. And I know they do an amazing job with the rigor of the instruction. I have 2 nieces that went through the system. They're doing excellent in college. They're excelling because of the rigor and the caring environment that West Orange provided. But what brought me here tonight was the notice of a tax increase. But now one of my questions were answered when I saw the guy give the report about facilities. I understand. I worked here as a sub. I know that they're doing a great job with the facilities and with the staff that they have. But my concern is, if you're going to raise taxes, how are you allowing non-resident athletes to come up here and participate in sports, taken away from those parents who have paid for their child to participate in youth sports, now to sit on the sideline behind someone who is recruiting athletes from out of the district? It is also illegal to do so, and it's also unethical. What are you teaching these young athletes? Winning at all costs supersedes anything that's right. You're teaching them how to cheat, lie, and steal. And these athletes are going to carry that value along with them to the next level. There's enough of it going on in professional ranks, college ranks, and at some point it has to stop. I was a coach in Newark before retiring, and I never changed the grade for an athlete. I never recruited an athlete. I took what the school provided, win or lose. I taught my young ladies, because I coach females, girls basketball and girls softball. I taught them the values of having integrity. Now, if you're going to lose your integrity just to win a game, sad for West Orange. And I know for a fact that last year there were several athletes on that football team who lived out the district. My niece ran track. She was friends with some of the athletes. And when I would go to pick her up, I would pick her up from Union, Maplewood, South Orange, all these places outside. There was even rumored that there was one athlete who lived in Newark. So please double check your residency. I do not want to pay my taxes for someone to come from out of the city to come up here and benefit from the hard work, the rigor of the educational program, and the efforts of the staff and the community. There's other parents who have concerns. I thought they will be here tonight, but I guess otherwise they changed their mind. But please, teach these children it's not about winning. It's about building a foundation that they will carry them throughout life, because the game is going to stop. I think the percentage of people that leave high school very seldom go to the next level. And those that go to the college go on to other careers outside of athletics. I played baseball in high school and college. I ended up being a physical education teacher because my parents instilled in me the importance of education, not bouncing a ball, not throwing a ball, not catching a ball or running. So please take time to investigate, because I'm not finished with my investigation. And hopefully in another month or two, I'll come back with some names of these athletes who are not living in this district, who are benefiting from my tax dollars. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? All right. Mr. Moore, is there anything that you wanted to, I have a few responses to some things, but I'll let you go first.
Okay. So with regards to the preschool program, there were some challenges in the preschool program. I did come into it midstream, so I can't speak to it in depth. And I know the person's not here to hear that, but with regards to that, we're going to work on that from a different perspective. I think we have to take a closer look on how we present that to our constituents, and what's reality, how many people can we serve at one time? Because I know we ended up with waiting lists, and I've taken many phone calls with parents and so forth. And the reality is there, sometimes we only were able to find enough vendors and partners. And we did have to pivot to a new program quickly, and there were some unforeseen challenges with the and no blame on anyone, but there were some unforeseen challenges in which we had to pivot, but was able to do so and provide our parents with preschool. So I was happy we were able to still provide that. I thought that with respect to the reading and ELA and literacy, I know that Orton Gillingham was brought up, and I think that I agree. What a terrific program that is. That does work, and we do spend the money to train some of our teachers, and I think it has worth, and I do believe that it has value, and we do incorporate it, and we are not trying to get rid of that. In terms of registration and re-registration, I listened to your words. I'm sure people slip through the cracks, but we will pay a close eye to it, as I said, and everything. We want to be on the up and up and by the book. I will tell you that students do pay tuition to come to West Orange as well from other towns, and we have students that go to other towns as well that pay tuition there. So I just want to clarify that they pay their way, but I do respect the gentleman's comments, and we will take a close eye and make sure we look at it and investigate people's residency. Thank you. I think I got it. Oh, air conditioning. Yes, I would like to work on air conditioning, and I will say that as I sat on the board and listened, and by the way, I'm a little clearer voice. Thank you for the 2 minutes to the crowd. But with air conditioning, I will say to you that it is a priority to myself as well. When I was in the building as a principal, I can tell you that the building is really hot, and I do believe there may be some things with climate change that we should take a look at. But I think Mr. Stevenson's, I think the way he was able to dissect the report a little bit maybe would lead us down a direction in which we can perhaps look at that from another fiscal perspective and see if we can maybe remedy that. I do think that at this point, air conditioning is emergent, and I do think we need to look at it for the comfort of our students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Just a few things to add on. To Mr. Redwine, thank you for the suggestions. A couple responses. So with regards to climate change, I don't think we have a specific plan or policy in place, but it is something we think about. So we have had conversations with the town in partnership about possibly getting solar panels on some of our buildings. The town is looking into getting some on municipal buildings. And then the report that we had tonight from the architect does contain specific suggestions about efficiencies that we can work into things. So it's on the agenda, but I welcome that suggestion that we look a little more specifically at that. You also mentioned funding sources. So in our last budget, we did apply for ROD grants, which are grants from the state that cover part of a significant portion of the cost of facilities upgrades, like what we're talking about. We will obviously continue to look for state funding sources and federal funding sources that can do that, because as we saw tonight, there's a lot of work to be done, and any way that we can get additional money to cover that, we would appreciate that. Ms. Valdez had asked a question about Zoom. At this point, I don't think we have any intention as a board of opening the meetings to Zoom. We've discussed this and settled that in the past. Or I would say that we do live stream our meetings, so anyone can watch live from home. We have also moved our meetings up by an hour, so the public portion starts at 6:30, which hopefully makes it more accessible to parents and students that want to attend. And we do read our emails. Anyone that emails us, we read those thoroughly. So if there's something you want to comment about, that you want us to know ahead of time or right after the meeting, make sure you email us and we will take that into consideration as we discuss other things. And then finally, the air conditioning, like Mr. Moore said, I think I can speak for all my colleagues that we're committed to tackling that issue. The question is, how do we do that? And that's going to be a large topic of our budget discussion, I'm sure. But yeah, so trust that we take it very seriously. As a former teacher myself, I know what it's like to be in a classroom that's 90 degrees. I know how uncomfortable and unproductive that is. And so I don't want any of our students to deal with that. But we also have to be realistic about how quickly we can tackle it. And we're going to tackle it as quickly as we can. Anything from my colleagues before we move on to resolutions? All right. So on to our agenda of resolutions. May I have a motion to approve the personnel items A1 through A6,
So moved.
inclusive of the addendum?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Tunnicliff. Want to congratulate Donna Promello, a lunch aide at Kelly Elementary, for her 15.5 years of service as she retires from the district. Thank you for your service to our students, and welcome to the club where every day is Saturday. Is there any discussion on personnel? Oh, and congratulations to Ms. Patansis as well, as Mr. Moore mentioned previously. There's no other discussion. Ms. Flowers, please take the roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Ifker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Tunnicliff,
Yes.
Vice President Huerta,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next, may I have a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction items B1 through B6?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Tunnicliff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice President Huerta. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll.
Mr. Ifker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Tunnicliff,
Yes.
Vice President Huerta,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next, may I have a motion to approve the finance items, C, special services items A1 through 4, and business office items
B12.
B12?
Yes,
Oh, B1 through 12?
yes, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Tunnicliff. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there any discussion?
One quick question about the clarification about item 9. If we're in the right, regarding the out-of-district non-resident tuition. Given that it was brought up by public commentary and Superintendent Moore responded to it. I think for the community's benefit, President Rock and Superintendent Moore, if there's some way that it may be enumerated in a policy, Mr. Rock, if it is, then I think we should probably refer to it. These list out the non-resident pupil tuition rates that are charged annually. And I think maybe the community would benefit at some point of knowing, what triggers that, what's a process for that, if it's enumerated in a policy, a reference to that policy, so that issues or questions with respect to either the number of non-resident pupils enrolled in our schools and how in fact the tuition is derived either by some coordination among districts, or if parents are paying this out of pocket, if that issue were to arise, I think would be good for the community and for the public to know with the transparency as to, we publish the rates, but you know, everything, there could be any particularized manner in which a non-resident pupil is enrolled in our schools, and to be able to know the conditions by which we accept that, to know how many are, I think would be good for the public. So I just wanted to make that as a comment before we take our vote.
Thank you. And perhaps Mr. Moore clarify in the future after we look into that. I mean, there are very specific and few reasons why a student would be sent here at a district and pay tuition. We did have I think one student from Verona that we recently approved. But it's not a thing where people just decide one day they wake up and want to go to West Orange and come
Well,
here like they're going to college.
that's true. My
And
comment-
it's, I just also want to be clear to the gentleman in the audience that you can't pay tuition to come here to play in our sports teams.
Well, that's true. And I just think that, you know, given whether there are assumptions, speculations, whether there are particular instances where it has occurred, I think just in full transparency for that disclosure to be for the community, I think would really be important.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Any other discussion around the business office items? All right, hearing none. Ms. Flowers, would you please take the roll?
Mr. Ifker,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Tunnicliff,
Yes.
Vice President Huerta,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to all of my board colleagues for that. Next up, we have petitions and hearings of citizens for any agenda or non-agenda items that you wish to discuss. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please approach the podium at this time and state your name and address for the record. Sorry, one second.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Just wanted to correct my report. The United Asian Voices event for Mama Dags is not tomorrow evening, Tuesday. It's next Tuesday. My apologies for that. September 26th. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Vice President Huerta. Ms. Redwine?
Thank you. Elizabeth Redwine, 10 Cobain Terrace. And I just want to say this comment comes in the spirit of someone who truly loves this school system and has 4 kids who, one of whom's already in college, but 3 at the high school who have gotten so much out of this school system. And it's with appreciation for the school system that I want to express my concerns about how the dress code policy has gone so far this year in the high school. There were, I believe, 5 dress code emails sent out before class began and just 1 letter from the principal about academics. The principal letter was wonderful. I'm a huge fan of the principal, and I just wish that the message to families and students had been that academics was maybe more important than the dress code. And then once school started, there was a huge dress code crackdown beyond just from the people that were texting me, beyond what any of us had seen before. And most of this was done by security guards who spoke in ways to students that created a hostile learning environment for girls. I only heard of girls and young women being dress coded. So I would just respectfully ask that we revisit the dress code. It's very difficult to buy shorts that align with the dress code. Believe me, I have tried. And they're expensive and you have to travel far to get them. So it's the dress code, I think, doesn't line up with what's realistic for people to wear. And it's also, as we've heard, very, very hot in the classroom. So it was kind of a strange beginning because we were having half days due to heat, and then we were having girls just rounded up, taken into offices, given sweatshirts from Lost and Found to wear, missing instruction. And, you know, we are in a mental health crisis right now for girls and young women. And so I just have a lot of concerns about that. And I would also just, I feel so strongly that we're so fortunate to be in this school system. And so I feel kind of protective towards the girls and young women and also towards the school system that we're opening ourselves up to some potentially unfortunate situations, and that it's just,
it was a hostile learning environment, I would say, at the beginning of the year. So I appreciate the conversations and the responses over emails, and I'm hoping that we can find a way to revisit the dress code. And I would just say more conversation about it in person, changing the dress code to make it more realistic, and that security guards are no longer charged with implementing the dress code. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carla Rivera, 25 Cliff Street. My daughter, Michaela Rivera, 25 Cliff Street, senior.
Chloe Mondi, 22 Ridgeview Avenue.
And I just wanted to broach this issue. I've worked in schools for 20 years. I understand that these policies are considered necessary. But the implementation of the policy has been very inequitable. I have 3 daughters who have gone to the school. I had my daughter come. It's her 5th day. She's new to the public school system, period. And she's approached by an adult who tells her, "You're thicker than a Snicker, so you should not be wearing these shorts." Right? So the language that's being used, the way it's making girls feel is unacceptable. I had my oldest daughter told, "You know, you're too big to wear that outfit."
I was also told like that no one would be looking at my pretty face because they're just staring at my body if I wear that. So I think it's just like the way that we are policed to me is like very distractive in a school environment. And I think that like for young girls, it can be detrimental to our mental state, like our self-esteem, self-image, body image. And like, I do appreciate, like following rules, but I think that as a professional who's telling you that, that's not following rules, speaking in derogatory terms. And I know she's been also told comments that were disrespectful by staff. So I feel like if you're going to make it like really heavy to implement the dress code, we also should make it heavy to implement like professional words when we do.
Right, because the whole premise is about professionalism. We're teaching kids to be professional. I certainly can go to work and say, "You're thicker than a Snicker," right? That would be called by HR, it'd be totally unacceptable. So either staff needs training on how to implement this, or the entire system needs to be revamped just so that girls feel safe and comfortable in school. Thank you.
Jane Kohlenstein, 24 Yale Terrace. I also am here to address the dress code. Recently, I've heard of a crackdown in dress coding students, specifically girls, for wearing short shorts, taking these students to the dean and therefore causing them to miss class time. In the handbook, it states that students may not wear short shorts or skirts, and what that means will be determined on a case-by-case basis, with no real quantitative explanation of what too short is. That wording is unfair and absurd, considering you could have 2 different people wearing the exact same pair of shorts and look completely different based on their bodies. The handbook also states that students should not be shamed or required to show their body in front of others, but the idea of dress coding itself is shaming them and their bodies, along with the giant t-shirt that they are required to wear over top of their too short shorts. By hiding certain features, you are inherently sexualizing them. Also taken from the handbook as a part of the school's mission statement, to instill in all students the knowledge and decision-making skills essential to make appropriate choices and successfully meet the challenges they will encounter as productive members of society. Instead of shaming and sexualizing students, we should be teaching them autonomy and how to self-advocate and not be pushed around by society's pre-existing standards.
Hello, Jessica Vias, 46 Gregory Avenue. And not to beat a bit dead horse here, but dress code has been a concern. I have a daughter who is a junior in high school. I have a daughter in 5th grade, and I have a daughter in kindergarten and a son who is in 8th grade. So I will tell you, my son has had 0 issues. My daughter who is in 5th grade, believe it or not, these girls get dress coded for having tank tops in the summertime. It's not bigger than, like teachers have said, it's not wider than your 2 fingers, which is absolutely insane to say to a 4th or 5th grade girl. I would hope you would agree with that. My daughter last year, I can't even tell you how many times she has been pulled down to the dean's office for dress codes or for drama by security guards that have been created. Like her therapist, because she is in therapy now, has said that it sounds like crazier than 90210. So I I really respect our leaders in the district, but there is some stuff that is happening with security guards and deans that are just getting completely out of hand. I got an email on Friday that a dean pulled my daughter out of class for something that happened last year and pulled her out of pre-calc. Like, she's struggling. She needs to be focused on her studies. And we specifically said, please call us if you need to pull her out for something so we could have a discussion and decide if it's important for her to be pulled out of her classroom where she's learning. And so, we're really looking to make sure our kids have a good education and not dealing with the drama of what's unnecessary, right? Like, these kids are on phones in the middle of class. So maybe that's more of a concern than what they're wearing. So thank you. We appreciate you hearing us out.
Nicole Rufo for Overlook Avenue. I'm writing I'm actually reading my email that I already sent you, but I have 4 children in the district, 2 boys, 2 girls. I can promise you that I have never heard a dress code issue for my boys. I've asked them if they've witnessed other people being dress coded. They have said what they have witnessed. And I've asked them, have they ever experienced anything? And they have flat out said, it wouldn't ever happen to us. So they are aware that it's happening only to the girls. My 2 daughters, who just started 6th grade, were told in 5th grade by someone in the classroom, not a teacher, but someone else in the classroom, that in Edison, they would be very strict and they would not be able to wear the athletic shorts that they were wearing in 5th grade at Edison. So you can imagine the anxiety of going into 6th grade, joining a new school, riding a school bus for the first time, and worrying about the length of your shorts. And these are athletic shorts because they exercise and they like to be comfortable when they're learning. In 5th grade on pajama day, my daughter was told that her midriff was showing. She was wearing plaid pajama pants that are a little elasticy and a boxy shirt that was for pajama day in 5th grade. And she was forced to wear a jacket the whole day because part of her skin between the pants and the shirt was showing. My 5th grade daughter was sexualized, that her midriff was inappropriate. I just feel like that ruined her experience. She came home, said that was the worst pajama day of her life. And I promise you, she did no learning that day. She missed out on a whole day of learning because someone thought her pajamas were inappropriate. Again, there was already a conversation at Edison in a group meeting in the auditorium on the first day of school saying that their shorts needed to be half the length of their thigh. And I'd like to know where that measurement comes from and if there's a scientific reason why that is where it gets scary above that length of the thigh. Again, these children are growing very rapidly and they're wearing the clothes that are comfortable and available in the stores. Like Elizabeth Redwine said, these are the clothing that are available in the stores for us to buy. The biggest issue seems to be from people who aren't maybe in your thought process. These conversations are coming from people in the front office that maybe have never been talked about how to speak to a child or what not to say. From lunch aides, teaching assistants, security guards. I feel like the only person that should say anything to a child should be a trained counselor who possibly comes to them at the end of the day with a note that they slipped them under the table, quiet, nothing publicly shaming, because I promise you, these are the things the kids are going to remember for the rest of their lives. They won't remember the celebration or the publishing party that they had or that great score they got on a test. They're going to remember the time they were pulled out of class and embarrassed in the middle of the hallway in front of all of their friends and people they didn't know. And everyone has talked about mental health is a huge concern. The anxieties that children are having don't need to be added on to what clothes they're putting on their body. I promise you that my 6th grade girls have talked a lot about what they're wearing every day, including on their 5th grade graduation day. They were afraid to wear a dress and thought they'd be dress coded because it had a thinner strap for their 5th grade graduation. Thank you.
Hi. Hello, I'm Janice Johnson Dias. Am I supposed to address 272 St. Cloud? I am coming from the older advisory board meeting, so my apologies for being late. I definitely wanted to be here to talk about dress code. So the science on this is bad, right? We don't have a lot of evidence, but what is really clear is that people can be scantily clad and still be brilliant. And our efforts to control girls' clothing, dress codes have never been for boys. They've always been for girls, and they've always been mostly for Black and brown girls and our bodies. And the dress code rules really need to be addressed. I understand that caregivers really want their children to be respectable human beings. This is a part of it, right? Caregivers really strongly believe that if children dress a certain way, particularly girls, that they will be protected. And this impetus, this desire to have our girls be safe is what underlies this. In a society that dehumanizes girls and assaults girls, then the coverage of their bodies is what people assume will be helpful. But women get assaulted even when they are wearing robes. And so it doesn't do that. Furthermore, we're in a society where girls have a strong sense of feeling insecure in places that they should feel safe in. School should be a site of safety. And what makes girls unsafe is the idea that they're being surveilled, that those who are in charge of them do not see or value their humanness. Those who are in charge of them only reduces them to their clothing. I strongly urge the school district to eliminate all dress codes because they're not equitable. They do not work for girls and boys. They're mostly a surveillance tool that harms girls, particularly Black and brown girls. Thank you.
Good evening, Stephanie Ladone, 11 Old Salem Road. I have boy-girl twins who just entered 6th grade. And while their experiences around the dress code are not what we're hearing about at the high school, this is the first time that they've ever explicitly been taught about it and discussed it in an assembly that they had at the beginning of the year. So you might imagine it raised some questions. Questions like why nearly all of the dress code standards apply to clothing that my daughter and her other female identified friends wear. How it's fair that typical girl clothes found and sold in stores are the items that are being dress coded. And my son doesn't need to think twice about what he's wearing. I'm aware that the dress code is the same across all genders, but applying the same standard across groups doesn't make it equitable. It assumes all students face the same expectations and standards of the way their bodies should appear in the world and to others. It ignores the different social realities that different social groups face. It ignores the fact that many of those dress code standards apply only and disproportionately to the female identified students in our schools. So I'd like to know, as others asked, where the standards come from. Please explain the rationale and the logic behind measuring tank top straps and length of shorts. Where are the scientific studies that these standards draw on? The research that shows that girls learn better, learn more with their midriff fully covered. That's the justification, right? If this issue is serious enough to interrupt our girls' learning, to pull them from class to change their clothes, it must be because their clothing is affecting their learning. But that's not what it is, right? It's because their clothing might be perceived as a distraction to others. Sounds like a them problem to me. Sounds like a teachable moment. Sounds like we're teaching girls that their bodies are a distraction. And I surely won't be teaching my daughter that her belly button has anything to do with anyone else's ability to learn. Moreover, I take deep issue with the respectability politics embedded in our dress code, burdening our students with the corporate standards of professionalism. Education is a socializing experience, but we aren't aiming to integrate our students into the working world. We're teaching them how to think about the world, how to be global citizens, how to understand scientific concepts and research. The construct of professionalism is highly subjective, often racialized and gendered, and frankly, not the task of our school professionals. So I ask again that you share the standards, the research that informed the dress code found in our schools. And when that search turns up empty, I ask that you consider how the district might take this opportunity to move beyond the racialized gender dress code and move toward an inclusive dress code policy. A cursory Google search tells me there's plenty of them out there, and I believe we're fully capable of creating one of our own. Instead of tasking administrators, faculty, staff with policing girls' bodies, let's focus on ensuring that our students have a safe space for self-discovery and self-expression. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Jonathan Redwine, and I live at 10 Cobain Terrace, and I just thought it was important that I also stand up and say that I share all the concerns that we just heard about the dress code. You all have heard from me a couple of times already last week about this, but I specifically wanted to say also, just to add to what they have all said, our district faces a lot of potential liability from this. And I wanted to read to you a paragraph from an article that was written by the ACLU, who has come out with a lot of concerns and legal action when faced with similar situations that I think are similar. In this article, they say, even when a dress code appears to be neutral on its face, a public school may violate students' civil rights by targeting enforcement of its dress code against certain groups of students. For example, public school dress codes that ban cleavage or bra straps or impose restrictions on the length of shorts or skirts are often targeted against girls and invite unnecessary and excessive policing of girls' bodies in schools. The ACLU has expressed concerns about potential discrimination, and they list a bunch of examples of cases that the ACLU has brought against school districts. So I want you all to also think about the potential liability associated with the dress code. And I agree with Janice Johnson Diaz that we should very strongly consider and probably just do away with the dress code altogether. I think it creates too much liability, creates too much room for interpretation, and it's really difficult, if not impossible, to enforce in any sort of fair way. Thanks.
Angelo Stewart, 5 Fairmont Terrace, West Orange, New Jersey. My comment about the dress code, it should start from the top. You should model the behavior you expect of your students. I was approached one day in high school when I was substituting, and the young man said, "You are a substitute teacher." I said, "How do you know? My ID badge?" He said, "No, you dress so nice." So let's start with the staff, improve the dress code of the staff. Because I've seen some teachers who look like they just rolled out of bed. Some look like they just got finished working on the barn. So let's start with the top and work our way down. Thank you.
For anyone else for public comment? All right, thank you. Mr. Moore?
Yes, first, let me say, how someone speaks to someone about anything in school, especially our kids, is important. So let me start with that. That is priority number one, no matter what the difficulty is, no matter what our kids face. I know that Principal Guerrero does take care of those things and make sure that he addresses them, but let me address it and assure you that first and foremost is how you're spoken to as students. That is not an okay thing. I want to make sure that goes right. And that is inconsistent in the way I approach students. So I want to make sure staff approaches them in such a manner. In terms of dress code, it sounds like there's a lot of nuances and understanding that has to take place amongst, let's say, principals, the school buildings, myself, and all, just to get a better understanding. I know Principal Guerrero and I spoke over the weekend, and I thought it would be a good idea if he called some of our constituents that were concerned. I don't want to mention names as we're still working through things. But I think and students, I think it's a good idea that if we're going to look at it, we look at it all together and listen to perspectives. I've heard a lot of perspectives tonight, which I can respect and understand where you're coming from. And some people we haven't heard from, and I'll give them an opportunity to weigh in, as well as our students to weigh in on it, especially students that are currently enrolled. So I think that Principal Guerrero and I are working with specific constituents, some are here tonight, to try to gather people to have a conversation about it as we can get a better understanding, because the one thing that I want to maintain is being an inclusive and open superintendent, like I tried to be as a principal. That's important to me to maintain that. So I don't have the answers, and I don't know that any one person does. So I think that if we sit in a forum, and when I was a principal, I know I had a chance to weigh in on that. I only think it's fair that I allow the new principal to work through that with the parents that are in the building and the students that are in the building on all levels. And maybe we need to also look at that going down to our elementary levels. The only thing I can tell you is I will definitely put my stamp on the way kids are spoken to on any level. That I can tell you I will be upfront about. In terms of understanding and how we would move with the dress code and any changes to it or not having it or any of that, I think that I have to allow that process to work with the principals and the parents and the students as and take a look at how that discussion goes and where we can see common ground or where we can get better understanding or where we can see where nuances are. So I would say to you that I would continue down the pathway of starting a forum or a committee with and we're starting now with our high school principal, parent, and they're gathering people together, and we'll take a close look for sure. And I think that any difference that we may have with the district and the community is one that we would have to look at and examine before we can give any real strong answer. So I will say for now, let us get together, sit down, talk about it, hear different perspectives, allow for those that are also silent to speak so that we can get a better understanding. And I think that's the way we will start for now. And hopefully we'll be able to expand upon that, have some real meaningful conversation and change.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And thank you to all of you that came and spoke about your experiences and your thoughts about the dress code. I'm glad to hear that Principal Guerrero will be meeting with stakeholders to review that, and I look forward to his recommendations. I just want to emphasize something that Mr. Moore said and make sure it's called out clearly. If someone speaks to you inappropriately, you can and should report that to an administrator. So if someone says something like we heard today, I would expect the principal to get a call the next day or that evening. Okay, good. So I just want to, for anyone that's listening at home, right? We can't investigate something as a body here, but I want to hopefully make sure that someone does, and that would be the principal, or if the principal doesn't get to it, then Mr. Moore would get to it. So thank you for that. And lastly, unrelated to the dress code was when Mr. Redwine came back, it reminded me he had said something else I wanted to address earlier. When you mentioned, or when we're talking about the architect report, you mentioned enrollment and whether or not we need new buildings. We have had a demographic study done. We've been waiting to have it presented now for some time. There have been some scheduling issues with the consultant that did that, but it is on our agenda for the next meeting in October. The architect themselves does not look at enrollment patterns and whether or not we need new buildings, but the demographic study does address the current levels of enrollment, projected levels of enrollment, and what implications that has for the capacity of our buildings and potential, how we deal with that and plan for that moving forward. So that'll be on our agenda for the October meeting. I think Mr. Iviker was waiting, then we'll go down if anybody has other comments.
Yeah, just briefly, I just wanted to point out that in previous discussions with the board, I brought this up. I don't remember who said it. It was either Ms. Rufo or one of the students, the impressive students who spoke tonight, but we're not going to solve anything tonight. There's so many issues that go into this, but one of the things that kind of really struck me is, this is not a scientific term, not cool, was I don't need every person in the building commenting on everybody's how their dress code looks. There should be, it should be limited. I have a daughter and I really don't want to hear everyone's opinions on what she's wearing. And I think that's a good place to start. That's all I'm going to say.
Anything?
I just want to quickly say to support his suffix, what Mr. Iviker said, and to really finding the words, so my words will be brief, because if given what was said tonight by our current and former students and by a parent, those words that were used by any individual in reference to a child is disturbing at the least. I don't even know if disgusting is appropriate at the max, but the reality is that, to suffix Mr. Iviker's point, we should be cognizant of who is addressing our children in these school buildings, who's been trained to do so? Is there a consistent administration of the dress code policy, whatever it may be? Who has the authority to do so? And so President Rock, I would just again implore you, based on what we've heard tonight, to continue to work with the superintendent to ensure that first and foremost, before there's any discussion about committees and task force, that from a professional development standpoint, there's just base respect of our students within the buildings in which they come to learn in. And if we have adults that are addressing students in inappropriate ways, I just don't find that to be something that makes me uncomfortable. And hopefully, prayerfully, what occurred with this family is outlier and not pervasive. Because if it is pervasive, unfortunately, we have a much larger systematic and district level problem that requires some immediate attention, because the words that were spoken tonight, not spoken about me, not spoken toward me, but I heard them and I was disturbed by them, as I'm sure any parent would be disturbed by, but more importantly, any student addressed in that way would be disturbed by. And that's just unacceptable and intolerable, not just in West Orange, but in any community in this country. So I find that just extremely disturbing. And thank you, parents and family, for your willingness to share that, because that's not something easy to share.
Thank you. Ms. Tunnicliff, anything? Vice President Huerta?
I just wanted to say that I do personally stand in solidarity with all your perspectives and viewpoints as somebody that has gone through the school system and has been dress coded. And I do choose to cover. And, you know, I do want to point out to Dr. Janice Dias's point, the assumption that covered is protected is a wrong assumption. I think that it is a pervasive problem that we have. It's not just restricted to West Orange. It is a societal problem. It is one of the easiest problems, I think. I think abolishing the policy on dress code would solve a lot of the problems. And I think that it's one of the easiest problems that we can solve as a board. Along with all of the other things that we have to think of and consider, we have to learn, or we have to really focus and our attention and our time and our efforts on the things that are really going to matter and impact the performance of our students. And so I think, you know, I have 2 daughters myself. I choose to cover and dress modestly. My daughter, you know, my daughters will make their own decisions and their own choices. And I think it takes courage to cover and wear full hijab and go out like that. And I think it takes a lot of courage to go on a halter top and some 6-inch heels. You know, I think it's all good. You know, it all takes courage. So this is our battle. It's a women issue. And it's something that we have to continue to fight for. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Vice President Huerta. So thank you very much to all of my colleagues. Thank you to everyone that spoke tonight in public session. Our next regular board meeting will be held at 6:30 p.m. on October 16th, 2023. This meeting will be held in the West Orange High School Library and Media Center. We will not be going into executive session after the close of this meeting. There will be no further business discussed and no additional action will be taken. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson and Ms. Tunnicliff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, yeah.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Our meeting, we wish you a good night.